Purpose-driven innovation. From an article written by Bill Scott of Store Report LLC. Every living thing that has the power of thought is capable of innovation. Without innovation, progress would be impossible. Innovation can be as simple as the process involved when your dog learns to fetch a stick, to events culminating in the creation of vaccines to combat deadly viruses, or designing a rocket ship to transfer humans to the center of the Milky Way galaxy and beyond. All animals, regardless of their knowledge, intelligence, or experience, innovate without thinking. Sometimes simply following the path of least resistance can mimic innovation. But innovation involving two or more complex ideas requires a purpose-driven effort and requires a conscious level of intelligence. All sorts of individuals populate the earth. We could classify them as followers, leaders, and those that do nothing, but those who have learned the power of innovation make up the elite that control our futures and the futures of our businesses as well as those of our competitors. Now here's the critical part: we may be entering an era where innovation is a necessary ingredient for survival, not only in business but in everyday life. That's why it's so important that you waste no time in perfecting your own ability to innovate to the highest degree possible, and then pass that knowledge along to your employees, co-workers, children and grandchildren, who may be dependent on their ability to innovate in order to survive. But how does one learn to control the process of innovation? Innovation almost always begins with a problem that needs to be solved. Controlling innovation to solve a problem requires knowledge of a wide variety of issues and finding the missing piece or pieces that produce a desired result. Here's an example. In the 80s, the tasks of receiving inventory in a convenience store seemed simple. You simply have an employee check the items delivered to the store against the accompanying invoice and report shortages to the supplier. This method of checking an inventory works when the supplier delivers only 5 or 6 unique brands. But how does this process work when a supplier brings in 180 unique items or more? Here is what we discovered. First, 65% of the invoices contained errors, with some to the benefit of the supplier and some to the benefit of the retailer, with the average error in the retailer's favor. You may be thinking, well, that's okay. Not so fast. Just one error not in the favor of the retailer could be horrendous in the amount of money lost. Second, in most stores, the auditing of the invoice had to be done on the sales floor by 1 or 2 dedicated employees, blocking customers from access to those aisles for as much as an hour or 2, with some counts going into the second day. Third, the errors made by the clerks were worse than the errors made by the suppliers and pushed by store management to get the inventory out of the cases and onto the shelves. The employees simply refused to do it. Here is how we used the process of innovation to solve this issue. A perpetual inventory system could be employed to track the number of items on the shelves by scanning in sales and processing received invoices electronically. A variety of systems, such as the one offered by Store Report LLC, are available which can be employed for that purpose. The system will produce an order to the supplier to order up to the exact number of items for the current delivery cycle. For example, if a retailer's customers were purchasing an average of 2.3 per day, and the delivery cycle was once per week, the system would simply order 2.3 times 7, which equals 16, less the number of units currently in the store's inventory. You could go even farther by adjusting that figure to the highest number of items sold during a 7-day period over the past 90 days. Broken down into steps: first, keeping a perpetual inventory by using scanning for sales, and then processing supplier invoices electronically. We used the Store Report solution with the store's inventory being maintained on a large IBM mainframe computer, invulnerable to hacking and ransomware due to its proprietary operating system. Second, order only what the store can sell during the next delivery cycle. Convenience stores make expensive warehouses, and the cost of tied-up inventory that won't be sold until sometime in the future ties up valuable working capital needed in the case of emergencies. Once I had a customer who was convinced to accept an order from a large drink supplier that filled an 8x10 room with a year's worth of soft drinks. It was still there when he filed for bankruptcy less than a year later. Third, pay the supplier only for what you ordered. Studies show that 85% of new items that are brought into your store without your knowledge fail to sell. Why would you willingly give your suppliers permission to carry out experiments at your expense? Fourth, spot check some of the inventory on the shelves within a day or two after delivery to identify overages and shortages and report these to the supplier. Having your clerks check high-risk items after they have been put on the shelf can easily be done at times when there are no customers to serve. We have spoken with many suppliers and found they would much prefer retailers to order what they can sell rather than the supplier being expected to second-guess what is selling in retailer stores. Suppliers have no alternative but to over-deliver for fear their retailers will run out of products and switch suppliers. You leave them with no alternative, so don't blame your suppliers when your storerooms and coolers are packed with product that refuses to sell. Overstock is the mother of out of stock and is responsible for one of the largest manageable expenses of retailers today. In the year 2020, we lost 2,044 convenience stores in America. We can blame some of that on COVID-19, but since convenience stores were not forced to shut down like restaurants and other mom and pops, there must be more to the story. Our data shows dollar sales rising while the number of items sold are decreasing. That's the best indication of inflation there is. Are you adjusting your retail prices to compensate for higher inventory cost? An attempt at innovation should become a daily exercise and passed on to your staff. For example, while observing the data, when Bill Scott noticed an unusually high theft of Snickers in one convenience store, he moved them to a spot that was easily viewable by the cashiers and immediately the number of bars stolen dropped. In another instance, Bill observed two cashiers chatting about girlfriends, what they were going to do for the weekend, and who was likely to win the World Series. So Bill gave them scanners and taught them how to scan inventory on the floor. What we discovered is employees are not lazy, they were just bored. Innovators don't sit around and brood about problems, nor do they try the same things over and over again and expect different results. The secret to innovation is to learn everything there is to know about a problem and then back away. Step outside of the mental prison you've created for yourself and make a commitment to innovate. The first step involves untangling the problem. Too often our thought processes go, I can't do that, because I can't do something else, and this can cause us to miss out completely by creating false reasons to fail. In the real-life exercise in brainstorming, absurd ideas are welcomed. When Bill Scott started working with small business computers in 1977, they were only available in kits. You needed an education in electronics to build one from scratch. Bill had a background in working on aircraft radar equipment while serving in the Air Force, but the cost of assembling each one of them one at a time was cost prohibitive. When Bill suggested the company sell him the kits already assembled, the company refused. They assumed that all of their customers were engineers and hobbyists, and half the fun was in the process of putting them together. The very idea that a computer capable of running a small business could become a mass-produced retail item was absurd. When Bill mentioned at a breakfast gathering that included a group of Hewlett-Packard engineers that someday computers would be sold in department stores, they considered him insane. Yet 4 years later, that's exactly what happened. The guy who told Bill, "We can't sell computers in department stores because we can't mass produce them and make a profit," missed out on becoming a Steve Jobs or a Bill Gates. Innovation means never having to say, "I can't do that." When you allow these thoughts to trample through your mind, you may find yourself stuck in a rut from which there is no escape, and you'll still be sitting there making up excuses when the electric company turns off the lights. Many years ago, when Bill was a salesman for a local radio station in his hometown and selling advertising on the side, he called on all kinds of retailers. He remembers calling on a convenience store chain that had recently been acquired by the Southland Corporation. Having his own afternoon radio show usually got him in to see the boss. As he sat in one of the offices of an upper-level manager, they talked for a while, and after making the sale, the manager told him something that he will never forget. He said, "If I could just get my cashiers to do one small thing, I could double the profits in all of my stores." That can't be. That's too simple, Bill thought. Imagine, one small change in a business, or your life, could have such an enormous effect. Double his profits? Not very likely. Interested? Of course he was, so he urged the man to tell him his secret wish. The man said, "If I could just get my clerks to ask the customer, 'Have you forgotten anything?' most of the time the customer would think of something else they needed and buy it." If that failed, the cashier could be taught to suggest something else on sale, and if the first suggestion didn't work, the second one just might. This was innovative thinking based on his past experiences as a door-to-door salesman and applied in the convenience store business. Of course, we do that today with sale signs and promotions, but how many customers will choose your store over another simply because you lowered the price on an item? Those customers are most likely your regular traffic and would be there anyway, sale or no sale. And even if a few customers came to your store to save 50 cents on a soft drink, how many would come back? Probably none, because they will be over at your competitor's store taking advantage of his sale when he is having one. With the average profit margin in the general retail sector after taxes is somewhere around 2.3% according to the American Enterprise Institute in Washington, D.C., you have to make a bunch of $3 sales in a convenience store to pay your expenses of keeping your store open. There is a liability involving sales and promotional gimmicks that's rarely talked about, and it deals with the knowledge that roughly 45% of all retail sales are not profitable. I'm not a big fan of sales because the results are temporary and end up as loss of profits and brand switching, so what's the point? But I digress. When you think of an idea that might solve a problem, without regards to its absurdity, stop, write it down, and go on to the next idea. Sometimes the craziest ideas will bring forth new and fresh ideas you would have never thought of if you had dismissed the absurd ones out of hand. When you have come up with every idea you can imagine, go back and research each of your solutions one at a time. This is when the magic begins. Keep in mind that most of the time you will discover that you were trying to solve a problem that didn't need to be solved. For example, Alexander Graham Bell accidentally created the telephone while trying to solve a problem involving Morse code. Other examples follow. Viagra was invented while scientists were trying to solve heart disease and noticed an unusual side effect. Corn flakes were invented when a scientist accidentally left boiled wheat setting out and it turned stale. The microwave oven came to be when a scientist was testing a new type of vacuum tube, and a candy bar melted in his pocket. Silly putty came to be while trying to create a new synthetic rubber substitute. Post-it notes evolved while an inventor was trying to find a way to mark pages in a hymnal. Saccharin came to be because a scientist forgot to wash his hands after an experiment. The Slinky was invented when a spring accidentally fell from a shelf. Trying to solve the problem of soggy fried potatoes being returned by customers in a restaurant led to the discovery of potato chips. Legend tells us that fireworks came to be when a Chinese cook accidentally blew up his kitchen. Play-Doh emerged while an inventor was trying to make a wallpaper cleaner. In recent years, our quest for information has accelerated beyond our wildest imagination. The time spent gathering knowledge has risen to 12 hours per day. Innovation should be the core element of any organization's strategy, and requires strategic thinking to gain a strategic advantage in the marketplace. Strategic thinking involves a collection of individual steps. The analysis of goals and problems. Goals should be precise and decomposable into work that has to be done, measurable, and broken down into lower levels and assigned to organizational units. Problems in arriving at these goals should also be mapped against organizational units. Defining and understanding critical success factors. Critical success factors, CSFs, are things that must occur for an organization to be successful. Examples are: increase working capital by reducing unneeded stock, eliminating stockouts, improving customer service, adequate employee training, improving supplier relationships and cooperation, a complete analysis and understanding of emerging technologies. New technologies create opportunities and competitive threats. Perceive the business not as it is today, but what it will become tomorrow. A futuristic view of how the business affects plans and expenditures. Create a list of business and managerial opportunities. Strategic systems vision. A system designed to gain direct advantage over a company's competition. The development of mission-critical systems. Install systems that change data processing from tactical devices designed to cut cost into critical strategic weapons to attack and cripple competition. These are brief ideas to get you started on a process of innovative thinking. If you need help in understanding these processes, I will be more than happy to get you started in the right direction. Developing a more innovative mind may be a requirement for navigating the years ahead. Focus on eliminating problems that don't need to be solved and free up your thinking to employ innovation by gathering knowledge and using that knowledge to change the way you run your business. Make no mistake, mom and pops are the foundation of the American dream. Even the world's richest men and women started out pretty much as you did. If the opportunities had not been there for them, it's not likely they would be where they are today. We must admire them for their ability to survive, even though we may fear them for what they have become. The way I see it, we can become as they are, or we can remain as we are. There is rarely anything in between. To summarize, innovation means the action you take as you keep one eye outside the box. Too often, innovation is a step that only occurs as a last-ditch effort to save a failing business, where if the same action had been taken earlier, the business would not be failing. Expand your peripheral vision to alert you of what is occurring away from the crowd, because most failures are always explained with the words, "I did not see that coming." Thank you for taking your time to watch our presentation. Store Report LLC has been providing computers, software, analysis, training and ideas to the convenience store industry for over 43 years. If you have questions about Store Report LLC and our services, you may write to us at storereportinfo@gmail.com, and we will be happy to answer your questions in private, or you can join us on LinkedIn at the link provided on this page.